to the 6th annual Study Abroad presentations. We will have estimated costs posted on the wiki by Monday, October the 29th. I'll send you an email with all of these reminders. We will have the lottery on Thursday, November 1st. And then we will announce those findings on, or we'll announce the lottery on Thursday, November 8th. Then you can go home for Thanksgiving, beg your parents for money, get a part-time job real quick that pays really good. Don't sell drugs. And then we will announce, we've already announced on May 8th, and then by December 1st we'll require a $500 good faith deposit. So, without, oh yes, and I have to make this announcement as well. By now, I hope it's all filtered down from previous study abroad students that this is indeed study abroad with emphasis on study. You are not to think of these programs as opportunities to sightsee or fulfill your lifelong desire to visit whatever city or country you're going to, because you're there to do work. So we suggest that you arrive early if you want to do some sightseeing, or stay late if you want to do some sightseeing. I encourage you to stay all summer if you can do it. Your backs are good, your stomachs are strong, so you can probably backpack through Europe or do it on the cheap. Europe is actually not so expensive once you're over there. The euro looks good. That is, it looks good for us, it's bad for the Europeans. But the exchange rate so far is very good. It's the peso. What is the currency? The Chile peso looks very good. The South Korean wine looks fabulous. All right. So, I must remind you also that while you are on study abroad, you are under the absolute control of your faculty. Absolute. They have the power to send you home if they don't think you're working, or if you cause trouble, if you're picked up on the street for drunken revelry, before your hangover is cured, you're on a plane back home. So, what happens before study abroad and after study abroad is not our responsibility, but we are parentes en locos, which means not crazy parents, but we are parents instead. So we will treat you just like we treat our own children, with tough love. So, in the meantime, you will see amazing stuff you've never seen before. You will be led by some of the best faculty we have here in the College of Architecture, who are there to teach you about the culture and the architecture of the host city. So, regardless of the tough love policy, you will have not only a good time, but a very fulfilling educational experience.
Okay, I'd like to introduce to you the Seville program. This is the oldest program, the longest running program in the college. I started it in 2003 and have done it for about 7 years, 7 times. So I'm pretty familiar with the city and with the country as well. This year, Professor Shacklet, who's in the back there, will be going along with me. We'll be doing the program together. The Seville program is situated in the Tech Center in Seville. Texas Tech has had a center in Seville for the last 11 years or so, and it's very convenient to have Tech there because we have a staff of people who help us with all the logistics and help us with anything that we need, as well as help us to find accommodation, do our tours, take you to the hospital if you get sick, and things like that. The characteristics of this program, we have 6 weeks of studio. So we're in Seville for 6 weeks with the studio project. In addition to that, we have an 8 to 10 day travel component. The travel component is generally at the beginning of the program, because the places we visit and the things we see are expected to inform the design process and the design ideas. So we do the travel first, and then we start the design work. In Seville, generally, students are accommodated with host families where they get 3 meals a day as part of your program fee. Last year we had students stay in a residencia, which is like a dormitory, but it was run by a family, and so it was like a private dorm, and everybody stayed together in one place. And we also have the opportunity to have lectures, tours, critiques, etc., by faculty from the local School of Architecture at the University of Seville. Your program fee, which you will get to know in a week or so, includes all the housing, the meals, the tour, the bus pass, the museum fee, things like that. Everything except your own personal spending money and your air ticket. Okay. We think the travel component is important, because Seville is an interesting city, but it's a small city, and in order to understand the context of the country as well as the city of Seville, it's important to travel, and so that's why we do the travel at the beginning of the program. And Spain has some excellent contemporary architecture by architects who are award-winning architects from various parts of the world, and so we get to experience and visit those buildings. We also get to experience a variety of public spaces, urban spaces, because the emphasis on 4601 is about architecture and its relationship to the urban context and about urban space. So we get to do that too as part of the study tour. Seville is a pretty ancient city. There are many layers of the city. It goes back to Visigothic times, Roman times. Then we have the strongest influence of this in the urban landscape is from the Moors, the Muslims that came from North Africa. Seville is only, or rather the tip of Spain, is only about 2 hours away by ferry from Morocco, so it's very, very close to Africa. So we are at the very southwesternmost point of Europe, and so we have a culture here that is quite different in many ways from what you experience in France or Italy or Germany or anywhere else in Europe. Seville also has a lot of contemporary buildings, with this being one of the newest ones. And so we can talk about juxtapositions of different kinds of periods and different kinds of architectures in this urban context. Go ahead. Seville is situated on a river, the Guadalquivir River, and it is a port, even though it's not in the ocean. It's the place from where Christopher Columbus sailed to the Indies, and where all of the wealth and all of the cargo that came back from the Indies came to Spain here at Seville. So Seville has a very rich heritage of not only architecture but also money. That's why they had such rich architecture. It's a very dense city, and so you get to experience architecture in a dense place and how to design in a dense environment. This is a view of maybe about 50% or so of the old part of Seville, which fits totally in an area that probably extends from University to Quaker and from 19th Street to 4th Street. About as much as the tech campus, or a little bit more, maybe 1.5 times the area of the tech campus is the center of Seville, and it has about 150,000 people. Okay, so that's the kind of density we will be working with, and you get to experience how to design in those kinds of challenging urban conditions. A variety of different streetscapes, very pedestrian oriented, because this is an old city, so some streets are just not wide enough for cars. Go ahead. We get opportunities to look at the pedestrian as walking as an experience in the city. Views, vistas, coming across unexpected things that make walking interesting. Plazas are very much part of Spanish life and Spanish cities, so we look at plazas at different scales and different purposes. Document them, analyze them, try to understand them so that we can use those ideas in the design project which follows. And so we look at starting from the spring semester, we will start to look at different plazas in Spain, in Seville, ones that are major ones as well as minor ones. So we get to understand their role and their purpose, and also how they're defined and what makes them interesting and useful places. The plazas are all the way from the most contemporary, which is this one here, right in the middle of Seville, to more traditional neighborhood plazas associated with churches or with some other institution. Look at streets and plazas, and their different multi-purpose uses, and how they can function as neighborhood space, as social space, as commercial space, right? Even as sacred space. Hopefully we will be there during the Corpus Christi, which is one of the major religious days of the year, and we will see how the streets get transformed and becomes an extension of the church, with architecture playing a role in that. Or as community space. Last year we happened to be the World Cup soccer happened to be in Spain. Spain happened to win, and so the major celebrations in the plazas were something we could experience as well. So students will be doing documentation and analytical drawings, trying to understand what makes these spaces, how to define these edges and boundaries, etc. They will do various kinds of sketches you'll see in the folders over there. That's part of the 4000 class, the research class. And then they will look at various other things, for example, doorways and entryways, and transition from inside to outside, how public and private are separated through architecture, facades and what the components of the facades are. Go ahead. Look at juxtapositions and how new buildings are placed in this very old context, where there are very strict rules about what you can do and what you cannot do. We look at very complex site conditions. This is a site for one building. These 3 points here are the only 3 places where the building is accessible from the street. They range from this is about maybe 60 feet to a doorway here that's only 4 feet wide. That's the street's facade. So we look at those kinds of very unique and very interesting conditions and how architecture can respond to them. And so these are some of the words and some of the ideas that we'll be working with through the semester, and things that we'll be learning about. Okay. And in the design project, we will incorporate these kinds of things: plazas, courtyards, edges, patterns, etc., that we learn from these case studies. In order to inform our design process, we have a 7-8 day tour that we will start from Barcelona usually, and go to Bilbao, then Salamanca, Mérida, Seville. Then we do maybe at mid-semester a weekend excursion to Granada, and then at the end of the program we'll go through Cordoba, back to Madrid, and then you leave from there and go wherever else you want to go. Go ahead. The idea of the tour is to look at works of famous architects, many Pritzker Prize-winning architects, many world-famous architects. Look at great spaces, great streets and plazas in Barcelona and Salamanca, etc. Buildings that we learn about here, from Mies all the way to other modern architects. Contemporary projects where old buildings have been reused, new buildings introduced into an old context with via contrast and juxtaposition. Go ahead. We look at other famous architects' work in such as Toyo Ito, Jean Nouvel, etc. And then, of course, we have to also look at Gaudi. So we will visit Sagrada Familia, which is now a functioning church, and as well as a couple of other Gaudi houses. Salamanca to look at urban space, plazas in particular. We will do analysis and studies even while we are on the tour. The tour is not just a travel thing; it's part of the educational experience. And of course, some of the monuments of architecture in Spain. You cannot go to Spain without visiting the Alhambra or the Mezquita in Cordoba. They are great examples of Islamic architecture, and since so much of Spanish architecture has been influenced by the Moors, we make it a point to go visit these places too. So some more examples of studying insertions, new things amongst the old. Look at materials and how they can be used, both the traditional ways as well as how they reinterpreted in modern designs, and also new built. This is a skate park in Merida, which is a very interesting project. Just opened about 2 years ago. Our site that we used last year was at the edge of a plaza here, the Alameda de Hercules in Seville. This is a huge plaza, but we had this corner of it, and the projects are on the wall there for you to look at. Students did lots of analysis and things leading up to the design of the building that goes in that corner. The ideas of streetscape, relationship to plaza, outdoor space, neighborhood space, inside-outside relationships, transitions, all of those things, those words that were mentioned earlier are incorporated into the design of the project. So that's what the Seville program is about.